It's 2 in the morning, and my phone buzzes with a new order. Usually, I'd be ready to call it a night. But this one's different. The pay is unusually high, but the destination is ... A single house way out in the deserted suburbs, miles from the nearest streetlight. Curiosity, and let's be honest, the cash got the better of me. So, I accepted the order and started driving. The city lights faded in my rearview mirror, replaced by an unnerving darkness broken only by my headlights cutting through the thick fog. The GPS led me down a series of winding, unpaved roads. Trees with twisted branches loomed over the path like ancient sentinels. My car bounced over potholes, and with each jolt, a little voice in my head screamed, "Turn back!" But I'm not one to quit on a job. After what felt like an eternity, the GPS announced, "You have arrived." Before me stood an old, decrepit two-story house. It looked like something straight out of a horror film. Paint was peeling off the walls, windows were boarded up, and the yard was a jungle of overgrown weeds. There were no lights on, no signs of life. It looked completely abandoned. I checked the address again. This was Italiano. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the cancel order button, but the customer had already paid. I couldn't just leave. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the small, lightweight package from the passenger seat and stepped out of the car. The air was cold, much colder than it was in the city. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the crunch of dead leaves under my feet. I walked up the creaky porch steps, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't find a doorbell, so I knocked on the heavy wooden door. The sound echoed into the silent house, and for a moment, nothing happened. I was just about to knock again when I heard a slow, shuffling sound from inside. The door creaked open just a sliver, revealing a sliver of profound darkness within. I couldn't see a thing. Then, a hand, pale and wrinkled, emerged from the gap. It was the hand of an old woman, frail and trembling slightly. I couldn't see her face. She stayed hidden in the shadows of the doorway. "Your delivery," I stammered, holding out the package. She didn't say a word. She just reached out and took it. As her fingers brushed against mine, a shocking cold shot up my arm. A coldness that felt unnatural, like touching a block of ice. It wasn't just the chill of the night air. It was a deep, penetrating cold that seemed to seep into my bones. I instinctively pulled my hand back. Her hand retreated with the package, and the door slowly creaked shut, plunging the porch back into darkness. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like a lifetime, the icy sensation still tingling in my fingertips. I didn't wait around. I practically sprinted back to my car, got in, and sped away, not daring to look back at the dark, silent house. The whole drive back, I couldn't shake the feeling of that ice-cold touch. It was more than just strange. It was deeply unsettling. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had poor circulation. Maybe it was just my imagination running wild in that creepy place. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't convince myself. The feeling was too real, too distinct. I decided I had to know more. It was a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, something in the order details could give me a clue. But all I had was a first name, Eliza, and a phone number. The next morning, after a restless night filled with strange dreams, I decided to call the number. I needed some kind of explanation, some reassurance that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. I dialed, my heart thumping with anticipation. The phone rang once, twice, and then ... A recorded message. "The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again." I tried again. Same message. The number was disconnected. How could that be? I had just delivered a package to that number less than 12 hours ago. The mystery was only getting deeper, and a new wave of unease washed over me. My curiosity was now an obsession. I couldn't let it go. Later that day, I found myself driving back towards the suburbs, back towards that isolated, forgotten road. This time, in the daylight, the area looked less menacing, but still desolate. I passed a small, local diner a few miles from the old house, and decided to stop. An older man with a friendly face was wiping down the counter. I ordered a coffee and casually mentioned I'd made a delivery out this way last night. I described the house at the end of the dirt road. The man's friendly expression slowly faded, replaced by a look of confusion, then pity. "Son," he said, leaning closer, "you must be mistaken. Nobody's lived in that old house for at least 20 years. Not since old Elisa passed away." My blood ran cold. "Elisa?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Yeah," the man continued. "She lived there all her life. Died right in that house. A real shame. Folks say the place is haunted now." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the pieces clicked into place with a terrifying certainty. The disconnected number, the dark and silent house, the face hidden in the shadows, and that cold, that unnatural, bone-chilling cold. It wasn't poor circulation. It wasn't my imagination. It was the touch of someone who wasn't there. I had delivered a package to a ghost. I quickly paid for my coffee, my hands trembling, and left the diner in a daze. I never drove for that delivery app again. Some mysteries are better left unsolved, and some doors are better left unopened, and some deliveries are not meant for the living. Thanks for tuning into my story. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Tales from the Road. Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before accepting a delivery in the middle of the night. You never know who or what might be waiting. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I've got a story for you that'll make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. This one comes from a long-haul trucker, a guy we'll call Ben, who's seen more miles of dark, empty highway than most of us will see in a lifetime. He thought he'd seen it all. Until this one night. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's ride along with Ben. Into the darkness, Ben was on a familiar route, hauling a full load through the winding mountain passes of the Appalachians. It was late, well past midnight, and a nasty storm had rolled in. Rain was coming down in sheets, so thick it felt like driving through a waterfall. The wipers were fighting a losing battle, smearing the water across the glass, and the only sounds were the rhythmic thud of the blades, the drone of the engine, and the howl of the wind outside his cab. These were the kinds of nights that tested a driver's nerve. The road was a slick, black ribbon disappearing into the darkness, with nothing but dense, dripping forest on either side. Up ahead, his headlights cut through the downpour and caught something, a figure. Standing on the shoulder, just at the edge of the woods. As he got closer, he could make out the shape of a person, small, drenched, and waving an arm frantically. Ben's heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct, every story he'd ever heard from other truckers, screamed at him to keep going. You don't stop for anyone on these roads, especially not at this hour, in this weather. It's just asking for trouble. But as he passed, his headlights illuminated the figure more clearly. It was a girl. She looked young, maybe a teenager, wearing a simple dress and a wide-brimmed, conical straw hat that was soaked and drooping, hiding her face completely. Something about her just seemed helpless. A wave of pity washed over Ben, overriding his fear. What kind of person leaves a kid out here in the middle of a storm? He couldn't just leave her. Against his better judgment, he slowed the massive truck, the air brakes hissing in protest. He pulled over about 50 yards past her and watched in his side mirror as the small figure hurried towards the passenger door. He reached over and pushed it open. The girl climbed in without a word, water dripping from her clothes onto the floor mats. She pulled the door shut, and the cab was plunged back into a heavy silence, broken only by the storm outside. "You all right, miss?" Ben asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The girl just nodded, her head still bowed, the hat obscuring everything. She huddled against the door, as far away from him as she could get. A strange, sweet smell, like jasmine flowers after a rain, filled the small space, cutting through the usual scent of diesel and old coffee. "Where are you headed?" Ben tried again. No response. She just sat there, perfectly still. Ben felt that cold knot of fear tighten in his stomach again. This was weird. Really weird. But what could he do? He couldn't just throw her back out into the storm. So he put the truck in gear and started rolling again. The silence was thick and uncomfortable. He tried making small talk about the weather, the bad roads, anything to break the tension, but she never spoke. He glanced over a few times, but all he could see was the top of that straw hat and the dark, wet hair plastered to her neck. They drove like that for what felt like an eternity, maybe 45 minutes. The rain started to let up a bit, and Ben saw the familiar glow of a 24-hour truck stop up ahead. "Look," he said, relief in his voice. "There's a rest stop. You can get warm, get something to eat. Maybe call someone." The girl didn't move. Ben sighed and pulled the truck into the sprawling, half-empty parking lot. Finding a spot under one of the the light filled the cab, chasing away some of the shadows. He killed the engine, and the sudden quiet was almost deafening. "All right, we're here," he said, turning to her. But the seat was empty. Ben's blood ran cold. He stared at the passenger side. She was gone. Vanished. The door was still closed. He hadn't heard it open. He would have felt the shift in pressure, heard the click of the latch. But there was nothing. The only evidence she'd ever been there was a small, dark puddle of rainwater on the seat and the lingering, sweet scent of jasmine. He frantically looked around the cab, under the seat, but it was empty. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. How? When? He unbuckled his seatbelt, his hands shaking. Maybe she slipped out when he was focused on parking. No, it was impossible. He would have seen her. His gaze drifted up to the rearview mirror. Just a nervous habit, a driver's reflex to check his surroundings. And that's when he saw it. For a split second, reflected in the small mirror, the passenger seat wasn't empty. The conical hat was there, and it was slowly tilting upward. From beneath the brim, a face emerged. It was impossibly pale, with eyes like dark, empty pits, and a mouth stretched into a silent, mournful O. It was a face of pure, bottomless sorrow. The image was there for only a heartbeat, a ghostly afterimage burned into the glass, and then it dissolved into nothing, leaving only the reflection of the empty, rain-streaked seat. Ben let out a sound he didn't recognize, a choked gasp of terror. He scrambled out of the cab, not even bothering to close the door, and stumbled into the truck stop, his heart trying to beat its way out of his chest. He never drove that mountain pass at night again. He says sometimes, when it rains, he can still smell the faint scent of jasmine, and he sees that pale, sorrowful face when he closes his eyes. A reminder of the hitchhiker he picked up on that dark, stormy night. The one who wasn't really there. What do you guys think? Have you ever heard stories like this from the road? Let me know your own spooky encounters down in the comments. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more chills. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Have you ever been so tired that you could fall asleep anywhere? For a long-haul truck driver like me, that's just another Tuesday. My name is Chun, and I've spent more nights in my truck's cabin than in my own bed. The road is my home, the rumble of the engine, my lullaby. But one night, near an old, forgotten cemetery, the silence was broken by a sound that had no business being there. A sound that still chills me to the bone. I was parked on a deserted service road, just a stone's throw from a cemetery whose gates had been rusted shut for decades. It was a creepy spot, sure, but it was quiet, and I had a few hours to kill before my early morning delivery in the next town. The air was heavy and still, the kind of quiet that feels like it's pressing in on you. I reclined in my seat, closed my eyes, and let the exhaustion wash over me. Sleep came fast and deep. Then it happened. Ding dong. Ding dong. My eyes shot open. The sound was crisp and clear, unmistakable. It was a doorbell. Asterisk. Ding dong. Asterisk. It rang again, insistent. I sat bolt upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. A doorbell in my 1998 semi-truck. That's impossible. This old beast doesn't have a radio that works half the time, let alone a fancy feature like that. I thought I must be dreaming, a weird side effect of too many hours on the road and not enough real rest. I shook my head, trying to clear the cobwebs, and listened. Silence. just the gentle hum of the truck's auxiliary power. I let out a shaky breath. "Get a grip, Chun," I muttered to myself. "You're just tired." I settled back into my seat, trying to recapture that sweet, elusive sleep. My eyelids felt like lead weights, just as I was about to drift off again. Asterisk. Ding dong asterisk. This time it was louder, more demanding. It was so real, I could almost feel the vibration through the cabin floor. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a dream. Someone, or something, was out there, and it was ringing a doorbell that didn't exist. My hands trembled as I slowly, carefully, leaned forward. I didn't dare turn on any lights. My only view was through the grime-streaked passenger side window. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, casting the world in shades of charcoal and ink. At first, I saw nothing but the skeletal branches of the trees lining the cemetery fence. But then, a shape resolved itself from the darkness. A tall, slender figure, standing unervingly close to the passenger door. It was just a silhouette, a void against the slightly less dark night. It was perfectly still. Ding dong, ding dash dong dot asterisk. The sound was relentless, now a frantic, maddening chime echoing inside my head. Who was that? What did they want? A million terrifying possibilities raced through my mind. A drifter, a prankster, or something else entirely, drawn from the forgotten graves just a few hundred feet away. The figure didn't move a muscle, just stood there, waiting. It was as if it knew I was watching, as if it was enjoying my terror. I shrank back into my seat, pressing myself against the driver's side door, trying to make myself as small as possible. I couldn't bring myself to look again. The thought of that dark shape standing so close, of that impossible sound, was suffocating. I squeezed my eyes shut, like a child hiding from a monster under the bed. "Go away," I whispered, the words barely a breath. "Please, just go away." The ringing continued, a frantic, looping melody of pure dread. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it was no use. The sound wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was inside my skull, a private concert of horror. I started humming, singing, anything to drown it out. I recited old nursery rhymes, the lyrics to pop songs, the street names of my hometown. Anything to fill my head with something, anything else. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed by fear, with that phantom doorbell ringing on an endless loop. It felt like hours, an eternity spent in a cold sweat. At some point, the sheer mental and physical exhaustion must have won out over the terror. My frantic thoughts blurred. The sound faded into a dull, distant pulse, and I slipped into a restless, nightmare-filled sleep. The first rays of dawn were filtering through the windshield when I woke up. The morning light felt like a blessing, a cleansing fire burning away the shadows of the night. My neck was stiff, my body atchid, but I was alive. The silence was absolute. No doorbell, no dark figure. It was over. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe it was all a hyper-realistic nightmare, a stressed dream brought on by a lonely life on the road. I let out a long, shuddering sigh of relief and prepared to start my day. I needed coffee, and I needed to get as far away from this place as possible. I turned the key, and the engine roared to life, a comforting, familiar sound. As I started to pull away, I glanced at my passenger side mirror, just to check my clearance. And that's when my heart stopped. There, on the metal of the passenger door, right where the dark figure had been standing, was a handprint. It was perfectly formed, the outline of 5 long, slender fingers in a palm. It wasn't made of dirt or grease. It was a deep, rusty red, the color of the damp clay soil you only find when you dig deep into the earth. The color of the soil from an old, disturbed grave. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, the tires screaming on the asphalt as I peeled out of there. I didn't look back. I drove for 100 miles without stopping. The image of that red handprint burned into my mind. I still drive that truck, but I never, ever sleep near a cemetery. And sometimes, in the dead of night, when the road is dark and I'm all alone, I can still hear it. A faint, distant chime. Ding dong. Ding dong. Thanks for listening to my story. It's experiences like these that remind us there are some things in this world we just go, you unexplain. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the road. Stay safe out there. Have you ever received a delivery request that just felt off? I'm not talking about a weird address or a demanding customer. I'm talking about a chill running down your spine the moment you accept the job. My name is David, and I've been a delivery driver for almost a decade. I've seen it all, or so I thought, until that one rainy October night. This is a story I've hesitated to share, but I feel like it needs to be told. It's the story of the order from the past. It started like any other evening shift. The rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the city lights into a watercolor mess. A notification popped up on my phone. A special courier request. The pay was surprisingly good, way above the usual rate for a single item delivery. The pickup was from an old antique shop in the historic district, a place I'd passed 1,000 times but never entered. The drop-off location, however, was what caught my eye. A small village called Sorrow's End. I'd never heard of it. A quick search showed it was deep in the countryside, about a 2-hour drive from the city. The high pay suddenly made sense. Rent was due, so I accepted without a second thought. Pulling up to the antique shop, I felt a strange sense of unease. The sign above the door, carved from dark, weathered wood, creaked in the wind. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust, old paper, and something else. Something like dried flowers. An elderly man with eyes that seemed to hold 100 years of stories greeted me from behind a cluttered counter. He didn't say much, just pointed to a small, wooden box tied securely with twine. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, and the wood was cold to the touch, almost unnaturally so. "Be careful with this," he rasped, his voice like rustling leaves. "It's waited a long time to go home." He handed me the delivery details on a slip of paper. The address was just the Old Willow, and the recipient's name was Alara. Just Ilara. No last name, no phone number. Red flags were waving all over the place, but the image of my landlord's eviction notice flashed in my mind. I nodded, took the box, and headed back out into the storm. The drive started normally enough. The city's glow faded in my rearview mirror, replaced by the endless dark of country roads. The rain was relentless, and the GPS on my phone was starting to act up, losing signal every few minutes. My music app kept crashing, leaving me in silence with only the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof and the hum of the engine. I glanced at the wooden box on my passenger seat. In the dim light of the dashboard, I could have sworn I saw faint carvings on its surface, patterns that seemed to shift and writhe, just at the edge of my vision. I shook my head, blaming it on fatigue. As I got closer to where Sorrow's End was supposed to be, the paved road turned into a gravel track, which then devolved into a muddy, narrow lane flanked by dense, menacing trees. My GPS finally gave up, the screen showing nothing but a blank map. "You have arrived," the automated voice declared mockingly before going silent. I was in the middle of nowhere. Panic started to creep in. I was lost. It was pouring rain, and I had this creepy box next to me. I decided to keep driving slowly, hoping to find a sign or a house. Anything. The lane twisted and turned, and the trees seemed to press in closer, their branches scratching against my car like bony fingers. My headlights cut a weak path through the darkness, illuminating swirling mist that rose from the damp ground. It was then that I saw him, a figure standing by the side of the road, partially hidden by the fog. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. He was just standing there, motionless. As I got closer, I could see he was a man, but he was dressed strangely. He wore old-fashioned clothes, a tweed coat, and a flat cap, the kind you only see in black and white photos. They were soaked through, but he didn't seem to notice the cold or the rain. I rolled down my window just a crack. "Hey man, are you all right? I'm a bit lost, trying to find a place called the Old Willow." The man turned his head slowly, and his face was pale, almost translucent in my headlights. His eyes were dark and hollow. "You're on the right path," he said, his voice soft but clear, carrying easily over the storm. "I'm heading that way myself. Ilara is waiting." The way he said her name sent a shiver down my spine. It was filled with a deep, profound sadness. Follow this trail. When you see a large, split willow tree by the creek, you're there. Just leave the package at its base. She'll find it. Relief washed over me, mixed with a healthy dose of suspicion. How did he know about Ilara and the package? Maybe he was a relative? I thanked him and offered him a ride, but he just shook his head. I prefer to walk, he said, before turning and melting back into the mist and the trees. I hesitated for a moment, then decided he was my only lead. I put the car back in drive and followed the trail he'd indicated. Sure enough, after a few more minutes of careful driving, I saw it. A massive, ancient willow tree, its trunk split down the middle by a long-ago lightning strike, stood beside a gurgling creek. It was an eerie, yet strangely beautiful sight. Tisa Tobi, the old willow. Remembering the man's instructions, I grabbed the box, my jacket pulled tight against the wind, and ran over to the tree. The air around it was colder, the silence more profound. I placed the box carefully in the hollow of the split trunk, tucking it away from the rain as best I could. My job was done. I swiped delivery complete on my app and got out of there as fast as my car could handle the muddy road. The drive back was just as tense. I couldn't shake the image of the pale man in the rain. Once I finally found a main road and my phone regained a solid signal, curiosity got the better of me. I did a quick search for Soros and Ilara, an old willow. The first few results were just local folklore sites, but then I found it. An old newspaper article digitized from a microfiche, dated almost 70 years ago. The headline read, "Tragic end for young lovers in Sorrow's End." My blood ran cold as I read the story. It detailed the tale of a young woman named Ilara and her lover, a man named Liam. Liam was a craftsman who had made a beautiful, hand-carved wooden box to propose to Ilara. Inside was a ring. He was meant to meet her under their favorite spot, the old split willow tree by the creek, but a terrible storm hit that night, much like the one I was driving through. On his way to meet her, Liam's cart overturned on the treacherous road, and he was tragically killed. The box, his final gift to her, was lost in the chaos. Ilara, heartbroken, waited for him all night under the willow tree. They say she died of a broken heart just a few years later, never recovering from the loss. The article included a faded photograph of the couple. The man in the photo, it was him. It was the same pale face, the same sad eyes, the same tweed coat and flat cap as the man I met on the road. I had to pull over. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I hadn't just delivered a package. I had completed an order that was 70 years late. The man I met, Liam, had been waiting all this time for someone to deliver his final gift to his beloved Ilara. The antique shop owner, the heavy box, the strange instructions, it all clicked into place in the most horrifying way possible. I had been a ghost's courier. I delivered a package from a dead man to a woman who had been waiting for him in the afterlife. The name of the village, Sorrow's End, wasn't just a name. It was a promise, and that night, I helped end their sorrow. I never drove delivery routes in the countryside at night again. Sometimes, when the rain falls hard against my window, I think of them. I think of Liam and Ilara finally reunited. And I wonder, who placed that order? Was it the antique dealer? A keeper of forgotten stories? Or was it Liam himself, reaching out from across the veil? I don't think I'll ever know the answer. And frankly, I'm not sure I want to. Some deliveries are better left unexplained. Thank you for listening to my story. It's one that stuck with me. A chilling reminder that there are things in this world that we can't explain. If you have any stories of your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the road.